Good evening, everyone. So today we have with us Dr. Nadeem. He had calls from IIFT Delhi, XLRA BM, and XLRA HR. These were the three big calls that he had, and he managed to convert all three in the first list without getting into the waiting list. So we are going to have a conversation with him to know more about his journey. So good evening, Nadeem.
Good
So to
evening, sir.
begin with, can you tell me, say briefly about your academic and professional profile?
So, with regards to my marks, I think my 10th score was around 96.4, 12th would be 96.5, and I've remained in the top 5% of my batch in MBBS. So, I've been consistent throughout. And then, after MBBS, I worked for 2 years as an emergency and primary care physician. And I've also worked as a healthcare consultant to a couple of hospitals and to a couple of health tech startups.
Okay, so that's a very diverse kind of a profile as compared to most of the candidates that actually apply for an MBA, right? So Nadeem, let's talk a bit about your preparation for these entrance examinations. So can you tell us when did you start preparation for CAT 2019?
You know the story better than most people. So I topped my NEET last year. I topped my national exams and state exams. My national rank was in 1900s, and my state rank was categorical rank was around 80s. And by that time, when the counseling came in April, May, and I was convinced that I don't want to restrict myself to one particular field. So I had gone through that phase wherein I was like, I want to keep myself open, and business was something that was always on my mind, and I've always been noting the pain points in healthcare. So after the medical counseling, which happened April, May, June was when I actually started.
Okay, so June you started for
Yeah.
preparing for CAT specifically, which is kind of late if you ask most people, right? Because most people say
Okay.
that January is kind of the best time to start preparing for CAT in that year, or maybe before that. So can you tell us how difficult was it to juggle between your preparation and plus you are also working as a doctor
Yeah.
on the field as well. So how difficult was it managing time between your profession and your preparation for CAT?
But I think coming from a pure academic background, I can say that CAT preparation is not as intense as maybe people first told, first introduced me to it. Because like something like medicine is very academic, but CAT is CAT, ZAT, or IFT, any of these competitive exams, it's more like uh, you have to be consistent. It's like long-term consistency instead of like short-term intensity, like how you prepare for a semester exam or something like that. So if you're able to space it out and constantly update yourself and constantly work between your mocks, provide enough time to get yourself better, I think that will do. I don't think June was a late time, neither do I think even starting a couple of months later would be late in any sense.
Right. So, Nadeem, also you are a medical student and you are
Yeah.
not an engineer, or you don't have that physics, chemistry kind of a
Yeah.
chemistry maybe a bit, but not that physics, mathematics kind of
Yeah.
a background much. And plus, you have also worked on the field for 2 years before you took CAT. So, do you think that non-science background students and non-engineering background students will find it very difficult to cope with the quantitative aptitude section of the paper?
I don't think so. So I've been out of touch for math for what 6 years for medicine, and then 1.5 years of then again PG prep. So it's been like 7 years. I was out of touch. I mean, that's a very long time, and I don't think other candidates would have such a big break either. So it's definitely something you can learn. And there are three sessions you can, if you strategize well, you can focus on one session. You can try to maximize on that session, and you can easily scrape through the others, and if you're able to just be consistent, you will eventually perform well. So I think it's just a building step by step process in quant. I never found, I wouldn't say never, but I identified that it was a point I need to work on, and it's possible. That's what I would say.
Right. And also, there's one single question that several students asked that what is the number of mocks that really
Okay.
successful students give? So, what is the total number of mocks? What is the magic number of mocks for you?
So I've seen people who hit crazy numbers like 50, 60, 70, and neither did I have the time. Neither, is that, I don't think that's required. Having come to the other side, I can say that with some amount of confidence as well. I think 20 to 30, I think mentors like you would also agree that if you're able to do some solid mocks, properly spaced, increasing the intensity as you go towards your exams, I think that would be enough. So I did around something 30, but the amount of mock interviews I've done is a number surpassing that.
Yeah, that is something that we are very well aware of. That the number of mock interviews you have done is much greater than that.
Yes.
Uh, Okay, so let's talk about the day of the examinations, right? So I suppose that CAT didn't go up to par,
Yes.
like was not at the level at you would have expected to have happened. So how did you go past that, and how did you not let it affect your the day of the examination of IFT and SAT?
So this is where I felt it was important that you don't. It's like how you invest in stocks. It's like you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to apply for everything because, for instance, I had gone for a camp just some time before, and I had eaten the food there. It didn't work out. My health got bad. My mind was not in the right place. You just can't write an exam like CAT at that. I still got some 96.5 percentile, but it's not the best. You need to be at your peak performance. You need to be in your peak mood. So there are a lot of things that can happen wrong. And what what a candidate has to understand is that if they stay consistent throughout the exam season, if you might call it, giving MICA, IFT, XLRA, I think one or the other would definitely crack if you've been consistent the entire year. If you've crashed towards the end, it's a very difficult journey. But if you've been consistent, there's absolutely no reason why any one of the best colleges might not work in your favor.
That's something that I will definitely agree with as well, that you have to be consistent and you should not be putting all your eggs in one basket. Beautiful advice, Nadeem. So let's move past the examinations and let's look at the preparation for the interview. So as I said, you had three big calls in hand: IFT Delhi, XLRA, both BM and HR programs, right? So you knew that if you want to get into a prestigious B school, you have got three different options. So what was the strategy behind the preparation? What all did you prepare specifically for the interview?
So these three calls were very split for me. Like for instance, I had one of the first interviews in the interview season or calendar itself. Mine was on 27th January. So I had just given that. I just joined back to work, and immediately my IFT interview was on 27th January. So it was a very short time, and there are many buckets with which you can prepare your interview. But IFT specifically, you have to focus on trade. Because a lot of professors, at least one of the professor would be a senior professor, and he would want to, genuinely ask a question on trade. Not a general question on trade, but at least somewhat relevant to your field. So for me, I was asked upon big pharma. I was asked upon the numbers in trade in terms of bulk pharmaceuticals, equipments, masks, and all of that. And thankfully, we had already worked upon that, and those numbers were already sorted. But if I was to split the entire interview prep into different buckets, I would say personality is one, and then current affairs will definitely be one. The amount of clarity, what I would say, something along the lines of career clarity. They would definitely poke throughout your interview to check whether you actually know what you're doing or you're just following the crowd.
Right. So that was what I was actually coming to in the next question, and which is the most important question as far as your profile is concerned as well. That every year we have these students who come from a background of engineering, and then they say that, sir, MBA interviews is very difficult for people who have done a BTech engineering to crack, because it is for commerce students, it is for, say, humanity students, it is not for us as engineers. And if I say think about it from their perspective, that an MBBS is actually farther away than is BTech engineering, right? So how did you manage to justify that you want to get into management? What was the story that you constructed, and how did you convince the panel that you want to pursue a career in management?
I think any candidate who's gone through this process will accept that there are two big questions, like tell me about yourself and why MBA. And both these questions, like some people are fortunate to answer them. Some people are not fortunate to ever, get it from the interview. But I had to answer in all three. And for me, it was a genuine story because I had to tell them that I had done a startup during med school. I was always interested in business. My internship, I had done a lot of things to improve the process efficiency at college. So it was it was a very natural progression for me. But the challenge lies in conveying it to them as if it's sequential. If you're all over the place, but still you're very clear inside, it doesn't translate. And that's why I feel mock interviews are more essential. Like you can completely miss out on coaching. You can prepare, but you need a mentor to tell you this is the way you structure. I still remember the first time we had an interaction, and you have a lot of effort. I mean, you have a lot of energy, but you need someone to structure it for you. And that structured approach is very important for interview. And even after that, the professors didn't believe me, so I had to take up my PG mark sheet every time and tell them, no, bhai, this is why I'm coming. Trust me, I did do well.
So what was your justification? And do you think that a medical professional actually needs to do an MBA? And if yes, how can management education contribute to the medical field?
So the answer is in the West, it's actually not, no-brainer in ways, because there they have an MD cum MBA, MBA in health policy. So it's a dual degree there. Here we are still lagging behind. So programs in India, programs in Asia are still lagging behind in that. And even the ones which do offer a dual degree, they're not that comprehensive. So I had the call of whether an MDMS or an MBA. And like I said, I didn't want to confine myself to ortho or to psychiatry. I had ideas in a couple of fields. So that's why I took the leap key MBA is best. The reason being, it teaches you to be efficient, whichever field you are in. Like for me, just this phase has taught me to improve that use that mindset to improve efficiency in a model that I'm working right now for COVID care. So like that, everyone and anyone has something to gain if they're ready to put in the effort for it. It's just a way of thinking, and it helps you interact with brilliant people. Just a process of preparing.
So, so which means that one needs to think about their own field, and they need to realize that good management can actually propel any field of say study to say a much greater levels if you have got a good say understanding of management as a whole, and that can probably be leveraged inside the interview when you try to convince someone that that you want to pursue a career in management. Okay, absolutely, I would also agree with that as well. So let's talk about your interview experiences. Can you tell us some interesting tidbits from your IFT Delhi and XLRA BM and HR interviews?
So IFT interview was very short. I think most IFT interviews are short. By very short, I mean like 15 minutes. The XLRA ones are pretty long. Mine were among the longest, 40 minutes each. So IFT, they kept a poker face the entire time, and you get to a couple of mock interviews will make you get will help you get used to that, and that's just one way. Such stress interviews are just one way of challenging a candidate, and even if they ask, they did keep asking very complex questions, but I picked up very easily that they were just trying to test if I break. And most of them were unreasonable questions. And after that, they started asking questions that I could answer, and I answered all of them. So if a candidate is able to wait for his moment, he will usually get it. But if he loses track because of some XYZ question, which even maybe the interviewer also doesn't know the answer to, that's one thing that I think mock interviews taught me.
Okay. And can throw some light as to what was the difference between what was judged in the XLRA BM interview and in the XLRA HR interview? How were they different from each other?
So I think XLRA interview process is something that everyone should go through because they really test your character. Their GDs are very different, and the topics that they give are also very different. And every interview, whatever question you give, they have a question readily in mind. Like if they ask you your opinion on A versus B, they have a question readily in mind to tackle you once you choose a path, and you will get caught. Either on an ethical standpoint or on a practical standpoint, you will fall short. So to be able to think long and anticipate 2-3 questions down the line is what differentiates XLRA interview from other interviews. With BM, it was more about business practicality. Whatever I said, they wanted some structure to. And to HR, it was all about ethics. Every question they can bring to ethics. I don't know how they do it, but they do it with such ease, and it's distressing to the candidate, but they do it.
Right. So I think that speaks a lot about your journey till now. So before we conclude this interview, of course, lastly, I want to ask you that what kind of suggestions do you have for aspirants? Because if I remember, then you did not have a really high percentile either in XAT or in IFT. I think you had IFT percentile of about what, 96 or 97?
90, yeah, around that range. And XLRA was around 98.3. IFT was around 96.5.
So definitely there must be, say, different candidates who had a much higher percentile, right? So is it a misconception that actually exists that percentile matters a lot, that if you don't have the top level percentile, it is very, very difficult to convert? I think you have actually proven that it is a kind of a misconception, but does it take a lot more to say perform within the interview if you have a lower percentile?
Firstly, I think there's this misconception that marks do play a big role. I can't deny that, but to the extent that it is believed, it might not be the case, and that's what I felt. I've seen batchmates having similar experiences. Interview preparation is far more challenging, and it has a far more bigger learning curve than your competitive exams. And if you're able to drive your interview, like for instance, I was very confident after all 3 interviews that I've done my very best. So I came out being satisfied. If you're able to do that, and then you can be show to a certain extent that even with that percentile you can convert. I think once you get the call, I think mentors will agree that they want to select you, and it's all about the interview after that. I've heard this over and over again that once you're there, it's mostly a level playing ground, and they're just looking for a reason to select you. For good fortune or bad fortune, the IFT interview comes so early. I think there's nothing that can be done in those days. No matter how much you try to cram, you can't get yourself sorted, because even if you're able to get the current affairs right, to be able to understand yourself and kind of think, okay, this is me, this is why I'm doing this. Your strengths, your weaknesses, they take a long time to write, or they take a long time to prepare and sort it out. So I think whenever something strikes, if the person is able to write it down or structure it, I think that would be a good thing instead of cramming later. I think you would agree as well.
I'd also like to add here that you had a picture, right? You knew why you were doing an MBA. So do you think that
Yes, sir.
introspection needs to be happening somewhere little by little for people beforehand?
So I think everyone who, even if they score really, really well, I have noticed it in the people who've cleared XLRA and IFT after interacting with them, is that even the engineers who have gotten a commerce or anyone, uh, one thing which differentiates is that they were able to sell themselves.
Hmm.
They were able to sell themselves with clarity, whether it was the real thing that they want to do or whether it is one of their options is secondary. But when asked, they had a clear line. It was a very linear path. So that differentiates people, even if they've scored 99 percentile, 99.99, it differentiates people who are just following the flock. And I think the interviewers definitely see that.
Right. So there's one more question that I have on the chat. Shubham has asked what kind of GD topics are given usually. So usually, Shubham, we will talk about that when we enter into a GDPR preparation. But I would definitely like to ask Nadeem, what was your GD topic at IFT and at XLRA?
So my G topic at IFT was about trade relations, the US-Iran conflict and its implications on India. So it was a properly trade-heavy topic. There's no way you can prepare for it right now, because what happens 1 year from now will be very different. So staying up to date would help you support that concept with facts. That's one thing I learned from you guys. But the XLRA GD was completely different. It had nothing to do with facts. It was so general, something like gender diversity or something like uh, it was so general that I don't even remember it. And you cannot prepare for XLRA GD like that. And they decided to go for an abstract topic this year. So it might change every year. So like whatever you said, it's better to keep reading, but focus more on it later. These two institutes, I feel they're really forgiving if you have, for some reason, not been able to perform at different points in your life. And if you're able to do, say, IFT entrance exam well or XLRA well, I've seen people who have literally stumbled, like, have fallen sick for 2-3 years during the vital curriculum, and they're able to bounce back and come back to XLRA. These institutes are really welcoming of those people, and that's really great. June, I was like, what's happening in my life? And July, I was like, okay, this is what is happening in my life. So I think I definitely spent the nights actually, and I would have spent 3-4 hours solidly. And because I was used to studying a lot during medicine, so I was able to manage it. I used to push a little through the night. But then it's not like I didn't take breaks. Without taking breaks, I don't think it's possible to last till the end. You'll burn out eventually. Yeah, GD is not consistent everywhere. Neither is VAT consistent everywhere. But one thing that will definitely drive every call conversion would be PI. Even if you take something like PGDBA, which is still hanging, everyone is waiting for that interview so that they can convert the call. They're not just waiting for the marks. Everywhere you need to be able to drive your interview and sell yourself. I think that's it. Okay,
Yeah.
so decision making. We have something like that in medicine, wherein we have to take critical decisions during emergency medicine, and there's a structure to it that helped me a little. But I think nothing helps as much as seeing the past papers, because you might still be right in your approach, but they have a way of thinking, and you have to align yourself to that way of thinking. It's somewhat of a moderate answer, wherein you're neither too harsh or neither too what to say, too ideal.
Diplomatic.
Yeah, you have to be practical, and that level of practicality might sometimes seem to be a silly thing, but sometimes it may seem to be it might not even strike you at the first go. But you need to look at all 4 examples, and you need to literally think in that position, like play out the scenario in your head, be in that place, put yourself in that shoes, and see who all the stakeholders and who all will get affected. I think once you get that mindset, it becomes easy. I might not be the right person for LRDA session, but one thing I can say is LRDA is where stress gets to you, and if you're able to consistently prepare and realize that it's just going to be an exam, and you choose well, all the exams, all the mocks where I have scored very, very high are the ones where my LRDA has been very, very high, and that's just a result of selection. I think that mentors can help, but every time your selection goes well, I think the questions go well, and it always follows that pattern. It's never the case that you're able to select more and do more. If you do that, trust me, everyone will be scoring more, and it will be a relatively weaker paper. In IFT, they were like, what will be the impact of non-vegetarian food on medicine or vegetarian food on medicine? How will yoga improve, mental health? They asked all sorts of stuff in IFT, but in XLRA, they literally go and they instigate you. They'll be like for instance, like I said, they didn't believe my marks, and then they were like, oh, you're afraid to be in medicine, or rather, they will be like, are you coming to XLRA because you didn't have anything else to do, or someone told you? They try to instigate in so many ways.
So also, Nadeem, before we conclude, there's one question which I have to ask, because you are on the front lines right now dealing with COVID, right? So can you tell us, how is it for a healthcare professional in this current situation? How stretched thin is the workforce, and how many hours in a day are you actually putting in, you and your colleagues, of course?
So I currently work for a hospital called Ponmalge Hospitals here in India. I was working previously for a trust called Miyasi Group. So here with this group, what has happened is, not only are we taking care of patients in the wards, but we are extending it to remote calls. So like I said, we were able to work on a remote model where we are reaching out to patients all over Chennai, all over the state. So you'll be surprised to know how many people are having it and are not ready to go to the hospitals. And that's a huge number. And just addressing their queries, addressing their apprehensions is like a big deal. And we are on call all the time. So it's not like we have numbers. Usually if one person gets it, usually the family gets it. If one person gets it, the family is suffering, even if they don't get it. So there's no call, there's no limit to the call hours. It's an ongoing process, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better as of now. So we just hope we go to the other side of the curve, at least in the coming months.
Okay, so finally, words of advice and tips for all the future aspirants.
So I would say be consistent in your CAT preparation, in your competitive exam preparation. Focus a lot on your interviews. If you're able to, like, I used to read a lot since I was in medicine. I used to read a lot, even during CAT preparation, and that helped me during my interview process. Whoever had kind of crammed it towards the end, some people were able to do it, but some people were not able to handle that crashing of all those knowledge. And that is something that I would suggest you keep reading and keep updating yourself. And towards the end, I would say take as many mock interviews as possible. Like for instance, if I got a question in say one particular subject, like sir asked me a question in biochemistry, like from 11th topic or some 11th grade math, I used to go through everything in that. So if there is a box you can tick, you have to tick it. You cannot go to the interview process with some concept or some type of questions not practiced. If you're able to do all of that, the confidence that shows in the interview is completely different. And I have to mention Praveen sir and Bibin sir also. They have been like, the entire CL team has been like, they've pushed me, and I wouldn't be here without them.
So thank you so much, Nadeem, for doing this with us, and also thank you for being in the front lines and then helping us battle this COVID situation. All right, so thank you so much, and have a good night.
Yes, sir. Thank you.